If you were to ask the average fighting game fan which platform they prefer to play fighting games on, they'd probably say PC, and so would I. I mean, where else can I put Manon in a stormtrooper outfit? PC may be the standard for fighters nowadays, but there was an occasion where one fighting game was worth expanding your horizons. Now, I still gotta give the consoles credit, because when the savior of the genre aka Street Fighter 4 dropped, the PS3 and 360 specifically were essential for creating quite the multiplayer experience thanks to their online services. And when you combine a competitive and difficult game from a popular series with the dawn of online functionality, things get heated. Ranging from strangers insulting you for winning to rage quitting if they're losing, SF4 became a game of serious business. Remember, these are the same consoles where people were starting to make rather unpleasant remarks about each other, so no doubt that type of ferociousness seeped into SF4's online community. That was just one side of fighters that Capcom was cooking up in 2008, but on the other side was something a bit different, and that game is none other than
Tatsunoko vs. Capcom!
Oh, just hearing that theme takes me back. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom is a crossover fighting game featuring various characters from the game company Capcom, of course, pitted against characters from Tatsunoko Production, a Japanese animation company. The game is a 2.5 tag fighter akin to the Marvel vs. Capcom series that stood out for its incredible atmosphere and approachable gameplay philosophy. Now you might be wondering how such a seemingly random crossover came into fruition, and as it turns out, Tatsunoko came to Capcom wanting a fighting game with their characters, and the response was basically, I'd bet. A couple years later, and Tatsunoko vs. Capcom Cross Generation of Heroes was released in Japan only, but that exclusivity didn't last long as there was demand from all over the world about having an international release. And who could blame them, right? At this point, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was going on 8 years, Capcom Fighting All-Stars was cancelled, and Capcom Fighting Evolution was a disaster, although it's not the worst fighting game with dinosaurs. So interest for a new, even halfway decent Capcom crossover was high. 2 years later, a second version titled Ultimate All-Stars was released internationally with additional content that I'll reveal gradually as this video goes on. For right now though, let's start off with one of the most important aspects of a crossover fighting game. As with all crossovers, a lot of appeal comes from various IPs being represented, and this means picking characters for your game is a more careful process since you want to choose the best out of a very large selection to represent your brand. So I felt it would only be proper to go over every individual character selected for TVC. Starting with the more familiar Capcom side, we have two characters that don't need an introduction but are getting one anyway. These two in fighting game crossovers go together like peanut butter and jelly, so their presence is a given, and they retain all of their classic moves. Chun-Li has plenty of combo variety and mobility to keep opponents guessing, and Ryu's basic design has been enhanced by the game's mechanics. Plus, you can do this sick Link. Also representing Street Fighter is someone less known but still a great pick. SF4's newcomers weren't fleshed out yet, and Alex was the protagonist of the last SF game, so I'd imagine it was a good chance to put him in. He pretty much plays how you'd expect from his brawler slash grappler playstyle, and catching someone with one of his plentiful command grabs feels so good. Street Fighter wouldn't be the only fighting game represented, however. After over a decade of her pixelated appearance, Morrigan was finally given a 3D model. She has her gigantic Soul Fist, Shadow Blade, and many more of her iconic moves. She may be the only Darkstalkers rep, but we still have one more fighting game character coming through. His defining move is his dive kick, as it has so many applications you'd think it was raining Batsus. It's always nice to see Capcom acknowledge Rival School's existence, and since that game shares many characteristics with Capcom's tag fighters, Batsu's implementation is almost seamless. He's the only character in the game with his own alpha counter, and his voice actor really gives it his all. Capcom's non-fighting franchises would get some love too, because there's also... You already know they gotta include the mascot of Capcom. You would think they'd put in a more popular version like Classic or X, but perhaps since they had plans for Mega Man Legends 3, they wanted to promote it with the version of Mega Man that originated from that series. Then it got cancelled. RIP. Anyways, Bonnet is probably the closest thing the game has to a stance character since he's able to switch the weapon on his right arm for a few extra moves. His shield in particular negates ship damage. He can charge his buster for 3 different buster shots, or can just litter the screen with bullets. Are we playing a fighting game? Or Cuphead? All in all, a really solid character. Fighting alongside Mega Man would be one of Mega Man's best friends. Her fighting game reputation up until this point was being a complete joke of a character in the Versus series. TVC changed that by giving her a functional and even comical moveset in which she literally wipes the floor with you. She's able to charge up the power of her broom attacks and has a heavily disjointed jumping heavy attack that gives her a great neutral game. And wait till you get a load of this. She can even heal herself. Okay, maybe it's not the most fun to deal with, but you gotta respect the glow up. Now perhaps you'd be interested in another small red character.
Beautiful Joe.
Joe comes with great air mobility and overbearing projectiles, including ones that blows himself up. Although he's a stubby fellow, he has a surprisingly good damage output when he does get the hit. He just loves being flashy and I'm here for it. It's great when Capcom lets their smaller franchises debut in a Versus game, and the same thing happened with another series named Onimusha. Saki's range is absolutely insane. Just look at how long his standing jab is.
That's quite big.
Have a hard time hit confirming? Just pick Soki and jab away. He has good damage, armor, and one of the most interesting supers I've ever seen in which he temporarily becomes a heavily armored Oni, and any attacks you land will spill out orbs that he can absorb for different effects. After 7 red orbs, he slices you in half, dealing insane damage. Good luck getting it in a real match though. You may have heard of all of the IPs represented so far, but do you know about Originating from a quiz game released in Japan only, Saki has a crazy zoning playstyle. She has lasers, grenades, special bullets that she can load up and you can't tell which one she's going to use, a super in the form of an unblockable missile, and a command grab with deceptive range because a zoner definitely needs one, right? What a crazy character. There's a few more characters left on the Capcom side to discuss, but I want to save them for a different category later on. For now, let's move on over to the Tatsunoko side. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't even know what Tatsunoko Productions was before this game, but I can appreciate cool character designs when I see them. At the forefront of the group, we have Coming from the show Gatchaman, Ken leads a team of superheroes with costumes based on various birds, and in Ken's case, he uses a variety of thematic moves, like how this boomerang is bird shaped or when he swoops down to attack. Not to mention that he's more floaty than the rest of the cast. He even has a screen dependent teleport. Ken just gives off that perfect courageous vibe that you'd expect from an old school superhero, except for this grab that is just disrespectful. Ken would also bring along one of his crew members, So, based on June's swan thing that she has going on, how could we expect her to play? That's right, with explosions. In addition to her athletic ability and a sweep that has a lot of invincibility frames, she's able to place yo-yos on her opponents that she can detonate at any time, bearing you don't get hit. She can stack up to 5 at a time, and it allows for extra damage, pressure, or just putting the fear into your opponent.
Gary! There's a bomb strapped to my chest! It's gonna explode!
As I go through the rest of the Tatsunoko side, you'll notice a constant superhero theme going on. Next up, Kashan is an android / giant robot hunter who has a lot of extremely cool looking moves like this spinning drill kick and an electrified punch that he can charge to become unblockable. Kashan doesn't fight alone, as his dog Fiender can help him out. Fiender can be summoned for a variety of attacks, ultimately resulting in strong setups that could lead into massive damage. If you're not careful, however, the opponent could easily just... God damn, no animals were harmed in the making of this video. Next character. Tekken Man the Space Knight sacrifices speed for power, range, and high health. In addition to his whip and flashing although slow beam supers, he can chuck his lance like a frisbee, but sometimes you gotta manually retrieve it, or risk having a crazy reduction in range attacks otherwise before it eventually shows up in your hand again. And it gives me an excuse to do this edit. Looks like a lance is a pretty effective weapon, but could you expect the same from something like a kendama, a Japanese skill toy? One of the strongest characters competitively, Yatterman uses his weapon to attack anywhere on the screen. He has a running stance for mix-ups, and can lock people down quite easily, all while doing so humorously with his children's toy and his giant fire-breathing mechanical dog. His Yatterman series would end up being the origin for the only villain in the game, and I use that term loosely here. Wacky Dorancha possesses a wildly unorthodox playstyle in which she can call her 2 minions to assist her in battle, with tools that include, but are not limited to, a command grab, an overhead projectile, and a bomb, all of which she can place anywhere on the ground. She isn't easy by any means, but anyone who thrives on chaos and setups would very much be a fan. Coming up next is a favorite of mine and hits like a hurricane. Polymar in his special suit deals great damage with very simple combos and a side switch tool for mix-ups. Like, no, this is really fast. It works in the corner and you can even cancel into it. But Polomar's signature characteristic is his unique emblems that he can acquire in neutral. With the cost of an emblem, he can cancel a special move into another, or you can use all three of them to access his level 3 super. And I just want to point out that this guy has one of the zestiest walk animations I've ever seen in a fighting game. Just look at how he's taking his time too. Now if I'm in a fight with somebody and they're coming at me slowly with this, I am running. And we're still not done with superheroic costumes yet, because we got Ipasuman has a multitude of trajectories with his baseball pitch projectile, a way of closing the gap with his Psycho Crusher, and a decent combo game with supers that are not too shabby. A pretty straightforward character compared to what I've mentioned so far. I can't reveal this quite yet, but he also has a really cool level 3 super. In the meantime, let's turn our attention to one of Tatsunoko's newer characters. Karas has a slick design with his cool blue aura that follows him as he moves. He has excellent utility with things such as his quick sword normals, a dash teleport, a dragon punch, a chain special move with a couple follow-ups, an awesome looking counter super, and this sword twirl that can do things from being a combo starter to reflecting projectiles to going into his other super. A truly remarkable moveset. Now if only he didn't have the lowest health in the game. Can you imagine? Now to go into a character that is so rare, I couldn't even record footage of him. Sorry, no announcer bit. Hakushan is a genie who fights using a magic stick and his body weight, an admittedly unique design on a side dominated by helmets and superheroic suits. Anyone who played TVC may not recognize him because he was only playable in the Japanese version, and when the game got localized, there were licensing issues and overall unpopularity surrounding the character.
I don't really want this.
So the genie was ultimately removed. A shame really. Despite how people may have felt about the character, it still sucks knowing that completed assets of a game were removed for something as inconvenient as licensing issues. And while I'm on the topic of removing, individual character themes had to go too and were replaced by stage themes. Unfortunate really, but what can you do? That being said, this concludes our list of normal characters for the game. Keyword normal. We already have a nice pool of interesting and unique characters, but the devs of TVC still didn't think it was enough and decided to kick it up about 20 notches with their giant characters. When you think about size in fighting games, you'll come to realize that there is a limit to how big a character can be. Sure, there are outliers here and there, and anime fighters tend to have a wider range of sizes, but they still follow the same rules as a normal sized character, such as being able to be thrown, put into cinematic supers, and even fatality. It's easier for game devs to implement characters when they're all in the same size range more or less, and there are two instances I'd like to point out where size was an issue and adjustments had to be made. The first is Ridley in Smash Bros. In the past, Ridley had been considered too big of a character to implement, and you can see just how huge he is when he was unplayable and how much smaller he had to be shrunken down to become playable. When it comes to traditional fighting games, Motaro in Mortal Kombat suffered a similar problem, not because of his height, but rather his width, as he is a centaur. And when Armageddon was being developed, there was a lot of trouble programming Motaro's hind legs to interact properly with other characters and their attacks, so they were ultimately removed, and Motaro would look just like the Baron of Hell from Doom. With this knowledge in mind, it makes TVC's execution of their giant characters all the more impressive. And since I was just talking about the Tatsunoko characters, let's start off with the giant on their side. This lighter fridge Xbox Series X design of a character is the kind of stomp you like if he were a bug. It's pretty funny watching him just crush his smaller opponents with his punches and kicks, and he is the tallest character in the game.
I wonder if a fall from this height would be enough to kill me.
If gold isn't your type of metal like it isn't for me, there's always nice to see that the announcer acknowledges this color change, and he has this one super that looks like he's crushing your literal soul. That's pretty darn cool. But that's just one giant character. We still can't forget about the giant on Capcom's side. Whereas Gold lights and uses hand-to-hand combat, PTX, or Yvonne for the Lost Planet fans, opts for a variety of weapons at his disposal, and he starts the match with these guns you see on his shoulder, which can be one of three things: a Gatling gun, a shotgun, and a tracking unblockable missile. They can be fired in multiple directions and each has their own amount of ammo. After being fully used, PTX must reload for another weapon to appear on his shoulder, and what weapon you receive is random. Oh, and PTX has quite possibly the sickest cinematic super in the game. So good that I just have to show it in full. I say quite possibly because there are just so many supers like it. Alex will straight up powerbomb you, Beautiful Joe will enact a slow motion action scene, Roll lights you on fire and then drowns you with a giant bucket of water, Karas webs you up before slicing you down, Tekken Man literally chucks you on his lance like a javelin before ramming into you with his giant robot, and Batsu will beat you down with whoever partner he is using. And the cinematic changes depending on which partner is on his team. He even has a version when his partner has been KO'd where he tearfully executes his super. It's things like this that makes the game ooze with style, sometimes a little too much. What I mean is, take Polamar's drill super for example. After summoning it, he will run you over before coming back to do it again. Functionality wise, its slow startup and weird knockdown properties makes it near impossible to land both hits in a combo without the character dropping out, making its use very situational. Another instance I can talk about now is Ipatsume's giant robot summon. During this super, your meter starts to drain fast, and you can control the invincible robot to take swings at your opponent, hit them with unblockable sword attacks, and charge up a bomb that instantly kills them. It's a really cool super, and I won't lie, it's a lot of fun to just smack the characters around like it's a pinball machine, but it's not that great. Just look, you block the hook high, you block the slam low, super jump over the sword attack, stay grounded during this version, and the bomb? It's interruptible, and before you can inflict any real damage, the super is over, making it only useful for chip kills or timeouts. And of course, there's Selkie's Oni super that I mentioned earlier, but still, I can't really hate on the game for having so much personality, and I'm gonna take this moment of admiring the spectacles to show off the stages. Even though I've been using the training stage for visibility purposes, there exists a wide variety of arenas such as the Burning Wasteland, Ashland Castle, Daigo Temple, Les Vagas, Willamette Park View Mall, and many more. I'll leave it to the fans to know all of the stage's origins. Oh, and can we please put on the theme for Orbital Ring Cargo Bay, aka the best one in the game? This is Cross Generation of Heroes, a fighting game with a rich diverse cast and striking presentation. And the cool part is, when it went on to become Ultimate All-Stars, we would come to see additional characters added to the game. Let us start once again with the Capcom side, and who else better to start with than someone who's covered wars, you know? Frank West, or Nico Bellic depending on who you ask, comes with his comic relief style in that he uses everyday objects and zombies to defeat his enemies. His supers consist of a Mega Buster and ragdolling people through zombie hordes like it's a football game, and his English catchphrases stands out in a sea of Japanese dominated vocabulary.
Batter up! Go get him! Oh my gosh! It's time to rock! Yeah! To the moon!
On the more serious side, we have yet another popular Capcom character who is no stranger to versus games.
Zero.
And before you ask, yes, he's top tier. He's got it all. Zoning, mobility, mix-ups, damage. He even has a sick super where he freezes you in time before cutting through you. Not much else to say about him really. He simply gets the job done. Over on the Tatsunoko side of things, we have my absolute favorite character in the game.
Tekken Blade.
Tekken Man to Tekken Man Blade is like Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z to me. His design is just immensely badass looking, and the cool factor just goes up when you see his flashy moveset, such as his spitting lance attacks, his jet-fueled air dashes, great mix-ups, and this side switch move. All of his supers are beautiful to look at, and he's just an awesome, top-tier character. I'm real glad he got put into the game. Now, remember when I mentioned the bird team from Gatchaman? Well, one more member decided to come through in the game's update. Joe in his Miguel-like stance is here to put the beat down, and man, he is just brutal in how he does it. His attacks are just so impactful and disrespectful like crazy. He has a really good projectile that he can cancel out of his specials to leave him advantageous, as well as having one of the coolest counters in all the fighting games. And fun fact, he has his post-counter animation that can't be seen without camera hacks since the camera normally pans up. One flaw that he does have is that for some bizarre reason, many of his special moves don't cause chip damage. Kind of a weird thing, but besides that, he just gives off the vibe like he doesn't give a damn, as shown in this super where he fires a barrage of projectiles, including a missile that eventually comes crashing down that damages everyone. Going through these additional fighters made me realize, wow, they picked out a great selection of characters as I like them all very much. So far, we're at 12 characters for both sides, but remember, since Hakushan was removed from the update, the balance was a bit off. The devs knew this and decided to bring in a replacement.
Get number 2.
Yatterman 1's girlfriend is here to bully people with her baton? Wand? I don't know, but thanks to her weapon she has access to normals that she can charge up, with some of them being unblockable. Not to mention her ever so amazing Yatter shield. It's like Karis's, but even better since it comes out a frame faster, and when reflecting projectiles she creates her own out of it. And if that wasn't enough, she can summon a mini robot to help jump her opponent. Now, I'm no marketing professional, but I like to believe that Hakushan's replacement was better received. Sorry about that, buddy. And with that, our Ultimate All-Stars roster is complete. I know that was a lot of information just now, but the roster is just so full of energy that it was only natural for each character to have their turn in the spotlight. With that, I can finally start discussing how the gameplay works. One thing I have yet to mention, but it plays a crucial part in the game as a whole, is the fact that cross-generation of heroes was only released on 2 platforms. There was the arcade version, which lacked a few characters exclusive to the console version, and that console was a Nintendo Wii.
Come on now. Wii?
Yeah, you heard that right. A system that is perceived as a casual experience was the only console home to something from one of the most competitive genres in gaming. Like I said, TVC was going in a much different direction than their next door neighbor, and this becomes more noticeable when you see the controls. Whereas previous Capcom vs games had either 6 or 4 attack buttons, TVC opted for only 3: light, medium, and heavy. Add the partner or assist button, and that becomes your entire arsenal. This applied to GameCube, Classic, and joystick controllers, but if you use the Wii Remote and or Nunchuck, it becomes even more simplified. It makes sense since the Wii Remote definitely didn't have fighting games in mind when being designed.
That little control, baby, that looks like a...
Because of this, the simplified controls would have auto combos and one direction inputs for attacks and specials whether they were originally charged or not. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? It was a creative way to make use of the weird controllers while at the same time keeping it accessible for inexperienced players. If you want all of your attacks and special move strengths, you'll be using these controllers instead. I'll be using the Ultimate All-Stars version for demonstrating the gameplay as it brought balance changes to the original cast and made small changes here and there like adding hit stun scaling which prevented many infinites. Lucky you, Frank West, you avoided the nerf hammer. The objective is simple enough. You have 2 characters to a team and depleting both their life bars results in victory. Like the previous Versus games, there's a lot of emphasis on movement and combos. Things like super jumps, launchers, air combos, grounded and air throws, rolls, push block, and tagging are all present. Each character has one assist attack that can be called during battle, and supers can be performed with the meter you build throughout the match. Some things like double jumping and air dashing were given to the majority of the cast, which is interesting because, well, take Ryu for example. He never had such mechanics to practice, but in TVC, this kind of air mobility is a blessing for approaching and playing neutral. And this is the kind of game where you want these kind of techniques at your disposal. That's just the basic tag fighter stuff, but there are 2 mechanics that gives TVC its own flavor. The first being Mega Crash. Tired of waiting for another chance to play it because you were put in one of those long combos that tag fighters are known for? Well, if you have 2 bars to spare, you can press all 4 of your buttons during hit or blocks them to perform a burst that pushes your enemy back. A bit pricey, but well worth it to break out of combos or pressure. And in unique circumstances, you can get a short, heavily scaled combo out of it in the corner. This does give you red health, which could be recovered when you're on the sidelines, or it can be used for the game's most versatile mechanic, Baroque. If you perform a move and then input one of your attacks and your partner button at the same time, your character will glow like a rainbow, and from this point on, you're free to do as you wish. This allows for combo extensions, gaining additional air actions, and continuing block strings. And yes, this means you can make your invincible DP safe on block and still have it be your turn. Baroque will take all of the current red health you have, and you deal more damage in your extended combo as you flash colorfully if you have more to sacrifice. An interesting risk/reward mechanic that relies on your critical thinking to get the most out of it. Although the game was geared more towards casuals, there's a good amount of advanced techniques that a hardcore audience would enjoy, as is the nature of a tag fighter. We can't forget about the elephant, or elephants, in the room however. First thing to note, giant characters are on their own. You know how teachers tell the class to pair up? Well, the giants are that one kid without a partner. They have their own big chunk of health, cannot be thrown normally, and still have access to plenty regular techniques like air combos, Mega Crash, and Baroque. They're on the slower side, so they can't double or super jump, but one thing unique to them is their constant super armor. This allows them to tank hits from normal characters while unleashing their own. But take too many hits, specifically from supers, and you'll risk getting stunned, which allows the opponent to get a free combo on you. They are able to block, but will briefly lose the ability to do so if they armor through a hit. There are a few moves that bypass the armor, most notably hit grabs and command grabs, but for a lot of characters, their only armor breaking move is their level 3 super. Some characters like Alex or Frank have moves that are specifically for the giants, and can I just say, performing their command grabs on them looks absolutely hilarious.
Gotcha! Whoa, whoa, whoa! Yeah!
Now that I covered the gameplay, I think it's time we start talking about the content outside of it. This is where both versions of TVC start to heavily differ. Take the arcade mode for example, the one you'll be playing to unlock the additional fighters. In it, you'll be fighting a total of 7 battles before reaching Yami, the final boss. Originating from the Capcom series Okami, Yami has 3 phases and all 3 of them must be defeated to complete arcade mode. Now, if you were playing this mode on the first version, you'd earn a small animation for your character that was produced by Tatsunoko Production themselves. They can range from all sorts of things like Ryu fighting a giant monster, Capcom characters joining Yatterman's squad, PTX fighting giant mechs, and June doing Chun-Li spinning birdcake on a bunch of thugs. Cool, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that they're all gone from the international release. Instead, you'll receive a couple still images with boxes of dialogue. I'm unsure of the reasoning behind this, maybe more copyright issues, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. TVC has a few more modes that are pretty self-explanatory, and a shop that allows players to unlock things like illustrations, models, and additional colors with currency gained through arcade mode. Exclusive to cross-generation of heroes are these Mario Party-esque minigames that involve the playable characters, and can be played with up to 4 players. I thought Soki's minigame in particular looked super fun. Having to deflect flaming meteors is a cool game of endurance. On the other hand, Hakushan's math minigame sounds like a massive headache to someone who's not that great at math like me. Maybe this is the real reason he was omitted later on. Over in Ultimate All-Stars was something a little different. First, after beating arcade mode, you can press a button during the credits to control Doranjo and her crew, or roll on her broom if you were using her, and start collecting the occasional gold letters that eventually spell out "thank you for playing." This unlocks Ultimate All Shooters, a more full-fledged top-down shooter minigame where the 4 playable characters each have unique abilities. If you don't think that's a fair trade-off, well, perhaps you would have enjoyed the other exclusive and final mode to the international release, online multiplayer. Yep, TVC managed to be included near the dawn of online gaming, and although it wasn't anything like we have now, I mean, Wi-Fi is literally in the mode's name, it was still cool to be able to fight anyone in your region. The Wii servers have long since shut down, but the existence of Dolphin emulating the online experience has allowed the TVC community to thrive to this day, and over the years, the game has had many tournaments offline and online. If you're wondering about a tier list, well, there's not really an official one, but based on overall opinion, it'll roughly look something like this. Make no mistake though, it's still a relatively balanced game. Sure, Yatterman, Blade, and Zero have clear advantages over the rest of the cast, but characters like Polymar and Karas can pull their own weight. As for the giants, they're tricky to place. Let me stray off a bit to show off some gameplay from tournament player GC Yoshi 13. Not just because he enjoys my content, but because he's also a fantastic PTX player, and seeing him plow through smaller characters with armor is quite the sight to see. Now, a giant mirror can be a battle of epic proportions since super armor isn't really a thing here, but against normal characters, it's not so straightforward. Is it really a perfectly balanced versus, as PTX claims in one of his win quotes? So the funny thing is, giants were originally banned in tournaments because their matchups were too polarizing. For example, a low tier like Tekkaman is an excellent pick for giants, not just because of his armor break moves on point, but as an assist, allowing someone like Ipatsuman to combo giants quite easily, considering he's the only character with no way of breaking their armor. Characters like Morrigan, on the other hand, may have a harder time because of a lack of armor break moves despite being the better character overall. Because of this, a rule known as a fanfic clause was created. There's a few iterations, but the idea was for character changes to be allowed if a giant character was selected. Didn't matter if you won or chose your characters first. When it comes to actually fighting the giants, the optimal plan is to play a runaway game to take advantage of their limited mobility and chip at their health little by little. This combined with rough matchups and the fact that their grabs have abnormally long tech windows undoubtedly made them a huge liability. No pun intended. I guess that's just how it goes in the fighting game world. Nonetheless, TVC has had a large amount of character variety in tournaments due to the mechanics really helping out with evening the playing field. That's really impressive for a 2008 game that only had a single patch. And the passion doesn't just come from the players. The game as a whole is a product well worth trying out for a multitude of reasons, from the source material being respected, to the experimental gameplay designs, to all the countless Easter eggs that would make this video way longer than it already is if I kept mentioning them all. Reception for the game was positive, and countless fans have asked for a re-release, but I just can't shake off this feeling that the game had a lot going against it. I mean, I called it underrated for a reason, but how is that the case if the game is so universally praised by those who played it? EVO. It's the biggest fighting game tournament in the world, with only the most popular and active communities being the ones to have their game as the main title. Tatsunoko vs Capcom has only been a main title once, all the way back in 2010, and has mostly been a side tournament at these kind of events for the longest time now. How is it that a well-received and functional fighting game without any glaring issues only had a small amount of time in the spotlight? The true answer will always be speculation, but I compressed it down to 3 things that I believe were the biggest factors of the game's fate. The first being the fact that the only console it was available for was the Wii. Remember, this was before the age of crossplay and mods and PC domination and all of that. Nintendo and fighting games, especially around this time, would rarely cross paths, as Nintendo console ports were few and far in between. TVC's lead producer Ryota Nitsuma mentioned having difficulties porting the game to other consoles as the game was designed to maximize the Wii's potential. I always wonder how many more people could have been introduced to the game at the time had it been on platforms that were more geared towards the fighting genre. Even if it was, reasoning number 2 would have still been a thing, which is the Tatsunoko brand in general. Everybody and their dog knows who Ryu is, but how many series from Tatsunoko production can you name? Not a lot, I'd assume, and I don't blame you, since many of the old series represented here weren't even aired in the West. Audiences are drawn to what's familiar, and half the cast of a crossover game being unfamiliar to a person can be a hard sell. Funnily enough, the one series from the company I did know before TVC, aka Speed Racer, was considered at some point during development, but ultimately did not make it. I'd imagine he would have been able to ram his car into everyone. That would have been a trip. These 2 reasons were bad enough, but the last reason may have very well been the final blow to the game's decline, because about 16 months after the international release of TVC, Capcom revealed a game that I've been avoiding throughout this entire video until this moment. Oh man, one of the most coveted tag fighting game series was getting another installment with online play, multi-platform releases, and recognizable icons. To say TVC was about to get shafted was an understatement, because come on, no matter how cool Tatsunoko's characters may be, it is a tall order to be able to compete with the likes of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the Hulk. And this was after they started to hit the mainstream, and in the year after the game's appearance at EVO, it was ultimately replaced by Marvel 3. I believe that the majority of TVC's player base was about to jump ship, and I'm just as guilty, because I was absolutely hyped for what would become my favorite fighting game ever. A few years with Marvel had passed, and I eventually came to see how vital TVC's contribution was. Both these games were developed by Aiding, with the same lead developer behind them. TVC had essentially laid out the blueprints for Marvel 3, and it showed. From the chaotic gameplay to the shared animations to the transitions of the returning characters. And then there's Phoenix Wright. He was planned for TVC but got cut as the devs couldn't think of a good moveset for him, and it wouldn't be fully realized until a few years later in Marvel 3's update. So as you can see, even if the game had experienced a rather quick decline, it would spiritually be around. Even now, Aiding's future projects can be seen borrowing things here and there. DNF Duo's conversion mechanic behaves a lot like Baroque does in that you can cancel out of moves, and then Impact's crazy neutral and physics seem straight out of TVC. Sadly, I don't think the game itself will be returning to the spotlight anytime soon. It was just an absolute licensing nightmare during development that I call it a miracle to even see an international release. Although seeing Capcom's efforts rejuvenating their relationships with former partners has given me a small glimpse of hope that they haven't forgot about this game yet. I would have loved to play a version of the game that brought back all of the cut content from the first iteration, but even without all of that, I thoroughly enjoyed what it had to offer thanks to its unique and wonderful presentation. Every now and then, I'll dust out the old Wii to play around with all of the cool characters, and I'm sure most of you watching who have played this could recall having fond memories of the game. It's never too late to give the game a competitive shot, as there's always Dolphin and the community Discord surrounding it. Tatsunoko vs. Capcom managed to be an unforgettable experience even in the face of unfortunate circumstances, and is undoubtedly one of the most polished versus titles I've ever played. For my final score, I give the game a 9 out of 10.
Tatsunoko!
Hey guys, HolloShy here. If you made it this far, I want to take the time to apologize for my absence. I know that I've been slacking on the YouTube, but it's quite a challenge when you're doing things like learning new fighting games, juggling different social medias, overcoming creative blocks, having to deal with jury duty, and many more things. This video took quite a bit of editing in ways I've never imagined before, but I'll try not to disappear again, because I have plans to cover plenty more fighting games coming up. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Science for fact checking my script, and I also want to give a shout out to all of you for over 13,000 subscribers on this channel. It really means a lot to me. This has been HolloShy, and I'll see you all next time.